I'm saying we went through last time is the Nekudas Advarim, the Shit of the Ramak. Why the Musig of Ein Sof, only Atzmos is Ein Sof. Every other Musig is not Ein Sof. So to touch Ein Sof, one Ein Sof is B'li Gvul, second touch Ein Sof is Shlias Kol Teirim, and both of these in are only Shachas the Gabi Atzmos. Because the Klal called the first Posh, the finished Posh, but the first Musig of Ein Sof, that the Indian of B'li Gvul, Ein Sof Leis Pashtusei, say that there's no Hagbala. It's to where the Lukus is mispashet, v'nimtza, b'kol makim, adin seif, the whole Hagbala of makim is that Shaychas the Gabi Ein Sof. So that Indian is only Shaychas the Gabi Atzmas. Every other thing, kol mash yesh li tchila, yesh li tichla. It's not just a kosev, that's the Milsa B'taima. Anything that has a beginning means the Be'etzav doesn't have to be. It's only here, it's had a certain siba. So he's always mugbal, according to the Dov Rosh's Mechayviz Mitzias. He's not Ein Sof. The same way Be'etzim he didn't exist yet to be Mechadashim, so his Mitzias is a Azach was his Uvgemach geworden, was invented, so it could go back to the way it was originally. You say Be'etzim without affecting anything. The way the Mitzias is Mitzad Atzma, he didn't exist, so that he's not in safe. So the only thing which has to be, which Ein Leitchil, is only Atzmas. That's point number one. There's like Shlias Kol Teirim, only Atzma Shlias Kol Teirim. His Mitzias is not Mitzad the Gedarim of Mitzias that we know. The Musik of Mitzias that we're aware of is that there is certain criteria Kaviyachol, or certain Musagim, and without them you're not considered the same way when they get the Gashmi Islamashal, that there is certain, you say something exists physically. You can't just be, you exist physically mean that you suit to what's considered existing in the physical realm. So if something you're able to touch, something that takes up space, something that takes up time, so it exists in a physical realm. A svarda lamashal which you can't touch, so it doesn't exist begashmis. Now there's a svarda is nimtza beruchnis. Why is a svarda nimtza beruchnis? Because the svarda contains within himself the svarda mitzvah varay. Why does it exist? With what does it exist? What gives it the right to exist? Its existence is that a piece seichel, it's correct to say mitzvah varay. So the gedarim of seichel he suits the gedarim of seichel. So he has within himself the characteristics of being. So usually there's a certain musig of mitzias, of what's considered nimsa, what's considered existing. And what is the pshat that something exists? That he suits these characteristics, these musagim of being. That's a mitzias. Any mitzias nimsa, any mitzias that he's not nimsa me'atzmuse. He's nimsa because he suits a certain inyan, a certain mizgeres. Masha'ik atzmos u'meila, the shaila is, there has to be first the mizgeres, has to be first what's the musig of mitzias, and then you say this thing suits those characteristics. That's mitzias nimsa. Masha'ik atzmos, the fact that he exists is me'atzmuse. Not because he suits any musig of mitzias. Before there's any musig of mitzias, he exists because he's the emes. He doesn't have to suit anything. There's no gidra mitzias there altogether. Let's call it. There's no musig. That's that's only chance when you get atzmos. And the Rebbe Shosayim brought the Kudas Advarim that we'll see later what the Shidduch HaMkobalim, but Rabbi Chassidus, these inyanim, there's a musig of Ermein Amar. Ermein Amar, the pashtus is that is this galus Amar. He says because is this galus Amar, which we'll see later. What's the avon of Ermein Amar? But Mele, the is also Ein Sof. Because Ermein Amar, because that means that the idea of Gilei Lukus, there's a mitzias, there's a reality of Gilei Lukus, which is a mitzias. It's not atzmos. Atzmos is the musik of Gilei is also in this chadish. Atzmos is, but Ein Sof, the Gilei Lukus is also Ein Sof. And not only the is Ein Sof, but also the has within himself the keach Ein Sof, which he attaches here, the shlilas kol ateirim. We'll have to see later. The word of Ermein Amar also brings within itself not only that the is megale, the aspect of Moir which exists in the etzem of Elokus, but also the nekuda shlilas kol ateirim is also expressed and is brought out through there, which we'll see later. And now there's the Dr. says in Tanya that through the idea of mitzvusim atzmuse, of the keich atzmus, that mitzvusim atzmus, that's also nimshach in tevel. So that brings that's the bir al pichsid. We'll see later. That's the bir al pichsidis that his havos is bekeich ein sof, but it's the idea That's the real al Rebbe's miyashiv the shverikaiten of leishon isu, which we'll see behemshach. But that's we went through last time. Kihine, let's see the this. So the Ramak we understand. I mean, that Mazga and the two Musagim and stuff, and he explained very well how these Musagim are only Shaykhs and Atzmos. Any other musik doesn't have to be. B'meila it's not shaykh as behecher che'inyin mugbal, and b'meila it's also has a certain agdar. What this is, it's there. So that's what the character before. Zeh shem actually imam le'mashim so whatever msuv v'nim shech meni yisbarich. Ki mchinas atzmos mamish, hu mchinas insof ha'amiti chulu kana. Let's see the prat. Ki hine says like this. Kol ma shenikchu ha'mekubalim. Horishein means drame. Loy ma shakes nikgam tzin insof. Chin rame the pirsha ras nikri insof. What was their hechrech hurak kedei lefarish ich anei violation isi. What's the schwierigkeit? The chur what shemaz given. We're already mevair. What was the violation isi the Ibrahim beginning of the Maimer? That l'chura there's a chayes eliki which is malubish in every nivra. Atam a chayes kulam. And there's a keich ha'mahava which is malubish in every nivra. So l'chura it's a shinui. Of them in the teretz, the whole system of his hava is only deep. It's only b'china chitzenis. B'chinas diburi is baruch b'avad. So what's the shaila? What if? So what was machriyat m'kobalim? Hadn't the chateres. So let's see the way it brings it over here. She'enchem shinui beis baruch v'shum is spilus ad bria selim. It's the inyan of there's no shinui in Olakus, and the whole idea of bria tut garnet is there's no, it doesn't have any effect kaviyach on Olakus, and that's ashvek. This is l'chule nim moving klal eich la'yeh shum shinui b'bria selim es rabim v'atzumim oid. It's interesting the way you ask it. We come in Zagid, there's no shinui. The Eibusher creates a ribu elemis rabim v'atzumim eid. There's ribu elemis, and each elemis are dvarim atzumim. It's interesting the way you ask the question. And so l'chor we already gave it teretz, because the whole system of Eshavas is dibur. I mean, it's a problem. There's a ribu elemis. The Rebbe says in the Eibusher's dibur, kim have an evraim ain't safe. We're saying what's the same way a person with his keich dibur could be medaber diburim inkets. So with the fact that it's Eilim is Rabim Vatsumim, so that means that this Havas is not from B'chinas Adibur. What's the shayla? We'll have to see the understanding. But he says like this, V'yadua, he adds here, this Havas B'keich Ein Sof Dafke. So Mekenish should stop examining the teretz that this Havas is Dibur. Because that's if the only thing which, with the shayla, we were speaking about earlier, the Vatam Achayis Kulam, so there's the mashal in Semer, there's a Mlubash Achayis of Tzmicha. And in Bali Chaim, there's a little bit of Chayes of Bali Chaim. There's all the Chayes Mugbelis. So when you get the Chayes Mugbelis, you could say the premise of Olakus, which is Ein Sof, that's V'chlam not expressed in the Bria. The Bria itself is Zahara Bavat, Kolach Shiv. The Bria itself only contains within himself a Keich Yitzeni Legamri, with the Mashal of Divor, a Keich Yitzeni Legamri. But from the premise of Olakus, from the essence of Olakus, from the Ein Sof of Olakus, that the Bria doesn't contain within itself the senior. Ab dem bringt es nicht das. Ich bin klar, ich lese im Schimmel wir do this Havas Bekeich Ein Sof Dafke. Shehule vad Bekeich Bichot El Havas Mein Leish. L'chore we find that this Havas is Bekeich Ein Sof. Kid ich lese nicht klar. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, this is like Stamas word about it. The Lashon he says over here is that ich leye shum shiri brias elam es rabim vatzumim oid. Saying, I have to see later. This shayla over here, the way he asked it, this Havas Bekeich Ein Sof Dafke. Shehu levad Bekeich Bichot El Havas Mein Leish Chulu. I mean, the Lashon of Hu levad Bekeich Bichot El Havas Mein Leish, that's the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe. But in Kubalim, they didn't. He's speaking about the Rebbe is speaking out within the Kubalim and Rishonim. The Kubalim and Rishonim, this he's asking a shayla. Eich leishini sikla. The Kubalim and Rishonim didn't speak about the Keich Atzmus of Mitzusim Atzmuse, which is in the Bria. That's said the Alter Rebbe. And the fact that the Nivra is Margish is asking Mitzuyusi that he doesn't have a makir, that stems from the fact that Atzmus is using Atzmus. But the Kabbalah Hashem didn't speak about this Indian that Atzmus is reflected in the Bria. In order to have a Yesh Ma'ayin, you have to have a Keich Blikvul, Keich Ein Sof. So if you say that only Atzmus is Ein Sof, Kum Techei is that this Havas is directly from Atzmus. If you say there's a certain expression of Ein Sof in the Bria, the only Ein Sof, according to the Ramak, the only Ein Sof is Atzmus. So it comes out that in order to have the Bria, who live only Atzmus, not mitzad the Vartan Tzisim Atzmus, who live adi mitzad Ein Sof. Because in order to create a Nivri Yesh Ma'ayin, you have to have Bligvul. Davar Mugbul is not mitzad Gvul is not shaykh. So since you have, in order to be Mahavi, you have to have a Keich Bligvul. So and according to the Ramak, the only Bligvul is Atzmus. Come to Chayz that there's a certain shinu, there's a certain Indian in Welt which is Nevei mitzad Atzmus, and that's the Chor HaShayla of shinu. You can't just say Arabul Vad. But the way that Lepoel Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe says that not only in this Havas have a Indian of Bligvul, which we'll see the Pratim, there's also Indian of Mitzusim Atzmuse. But the Alter Rebbe is Amevor because Alter Rebbe is Mechadish the Musik of the way he says later. But the Lashon that he says here, which he calls Alter Rebbe's Lashon, but Legavidem Kabbalah made up his Landish. You understand what I'm saying? Shabbos Geich in Savdaf, because the Keich Bechot Havas Ma'ayin Leish Chulu, V'imkin Eich Leish Nisikla. We'll see the way he says. Lechem pirshu shashpa ba'ilum is hainu lahavis ilum is lahachis ilum is im shu kech ein sof mamish lechadish ma'ayin liyesh ein ze eise spalis ba'atzmos haber if you just have some ayadei aras and kesef. That was their answer. So they're not speaking about mitzvah metzmos. The Alter Rebbe read that what the Alter Rebbe says that hula bad v'kei v'chol mean the Alter Rebbe they know mitzvah metzmos and that like keser and rotzen are not mitzvah metzmos. They read that in order to have it. A nivra, which is in order to have a yishma'ayin, you have to enough kech in stuff has to be what enough blikvol. So and them and for inference they look it's enough blikvol, look it's so it's peil shini in atzvos kaviyachol. So have them zoked it enough ein stuff that's keser.
Why does his havas need to be?
We'll see in a minute. I just want to bring it the. So they answer this havas teka they rotzen keser. It's the same teretz of Arab Bad. Because in order what's expressed in the havas in enough blikvol, not only atzvos is blikvol, keser is also blikvol. So b'meile legabi atmos leisheni sikla. That's the teres nekudas teres that they say. So it's just kedai to mention this. He says like this. He says pish hashpa ba'ilum is this. Have to just remember or just one prat. That's again maybe it's a say to the whole thing that he's saying here. What's the shaila of leisheni sikla pashtus? It says l'chura any moving klal eich lo yeh shum shini bris elam and amatzu meid. In pashtus advarim. When we speak about the davar mugla, we understand very well. You have a Rav, which is Mashpia Seichot Talmud. The Talmud is one level, the Rav is a different level. In order for the Rav to be Mashpia the Seichot, the Talmud should understand it, there has to be a Shina in the Seichot. The Seichot is going to stay only the way the Rav, the way his Me'ach, the way the Rav understands it, there's no way the Talmud is going to understand it. So the fact that in order for the Talmud to understand it, Talmud has a different type of Me'ach than the Rav, lower target than the Rav, it has to be with Samson the Seichot, in a way that the Svara should be Masim to the Me'ach HaTalmud. Then it's a Shina. You have the Svara the way it's Meir, the way the Rav understands it. And you have the svara the way the Talmud named the svara, and under zach. That's versteht not pashtus. Now the shaila is then you have the when you're speaking about you see, that's when you're speaking when you get to dvar mugbala. But let's say you're speaking about the reason for the ashpa is mitzad bli gvol, not mitzad gvol. So let me just bring up this point. The Rebbe's dogma. They were saying the svara the way the Rav has it is also a certain seer. So in order for it to come to the Talmud, it has to relate to the Talmud. You have to change it. But what if the alien is bligvol? If the alien is not shaykhs to the whole musik of Akbala, so the reason why he's effective in the Makam HaMekabel is not because he has to suit himself to the Makam HaMekabel. The alien, the way he is Mekaimeh, is not mukbal. Then there's no shayla of Shini Luchur. You understand what I'm saying? When is the shaykhs the musik of Shini? When the alien, that have seichel the way it is by the Rav, is in one surah. And it has his magbolas. Only it's let's say the dakas of the svara only a me'ach dak of the Rav can understand. The Talmud just not it doesn't have a me'ach dak, can understand the dakas the way the Rav understands it. You have to be serious. But the dakas has agbola. The edelkeit of the svara the way the Rav understands it could only be meir, could only be present, could only be mispashit in the me'ach dak of the Rav. But in the me'ach Talmud, it's not shaykh. It's in order for the seichel to come to the Talmud. Yes, it's something. But what if you have an alien which that's all the dover which has agbola. So it has a certain area where a makim which is masim to the sinyan. Even if you have something which is not mugbal in a certain, the hagbala of makim doesn't apply to it. Something which is ein saf, bligvol. The musik of makim is not shaykhs legavi darini. So then he doesn't have to lower himself down in order to be effective in the mekabel. The alien kameishu bim kaime is ein saf. Like the Rebbe's dogma, the Rebbe brings a kama poem this Yerushalmi. I mentioned it before but what's the dogma? That brings it in the Kama Pamim. That the Gemara brings, the Yerushalmi brings, the Lakel that we get to Bezdin, that Lakel Gemer Alay. The Eibishter is finishes off or helps out with the Dayanim Paskin. But the Yerushalmi touches, what does it mean? That what do you need the Eibishter's help Kaviyachol in the Psak of Bezdin? So the Yerushalmi brings if you have Lamashal Lechatchila Apidin, you're able to ma'aber l'chedesh adar. Doesn't have to today we do Rapi Cheshbon. I'm saying it's not shei mekatsh Rapi Uriah. You could decide to be ma'aber chedesh adar until Rish Chedesh Nissen, theoretically. With that ice, until Rish Chedesh Nissen. Only then one of the Chedesh Zalachem. Once Rish Chedesh Nissen comes, you can be ma'aber chedesh adar. Until the end of Chedesh adar, you could still be ma'aber it. So let's say if you have a psula that her birthday is Adar Sheni. So when there's no Ibra, her birthday is regular Adar Stam. But let's say her birthday is Gimel Adar Sheni. The Pearl Gimel Adar came, was Hashanah Pshuta, Bezdin was still not machlit to be Ma'aber Hashanah. They didn't, Mutkahatna Medarf nicht, let's say. So the halacha is that a naira till she's ktana, till 3 years old. So then the bia is lishma bia and psula chayzrim. Pasha b'teva guf. The bia is like the psula chayzrim. If the bia happened after she's about shalish, then psula inim chayzrim and the bia is a bia. I mean, so the shaila is so the Gemara brings. Let's say you had a ktana and gimel other passed. They still warm as a chodesh. So now she turned 3 years old. Now bimtzias, she's 3 years old. So now psula inim chayzrim. And if there was a bia, so that was considered a bia. She could be nifsal kukum, whatever the dinim are. But yenevet kikna einish. Let's say if she was a ktana, which let's say she was married, so she would be a biasa bia, and it could be titzed. But what if later in the month beznot machad given to be ma'aber the chodesh? So now it comes out that she wasn't 3 years old. So the halacha is that psula chayzrim. Her guf is mishtana. And the bia is not considered bia, and all the dinim that are that. So the shaila is, in order to mishana the teva guf, you have to have a physical operation to change the nature of someone's guf. A guf is the mitzativa, doesn't get affected by a psak din of bezdin. Here, bezdin paskin that al pi chachmas atayra darf eis komen that he should be ma'aber sachedesh, and because of that she's not 3 years old yet, and now her guf is mishtana. Psula chayzrim. So what's the pshat in them? So that's since the psak of Torah, and Torah is the Eibishter's ratzna alin, the Eibishter's psak. The guy with the Eibishter's psak does not. If the Eibishter says so, is it? What if the ratzna alin is that right now this Ketana is 2 years old, so he doesn't have to be mitzamtzim himself and to suit to come to a mode that is mashpia on a guf. The psak guf is not mukbal. The chatchila doesn't have a specific area where the alien is. The Eibush is higher than the whole is ain't selfless pashtusa. So if Apitera is 3 years old, so it's 3 years old in all realms. Not because we're misamtzim in all realms. Because the psak of Torah the chatchila has no shaykhs to the musig of realms. It's ain't self mamish. The male is as a yomadun. The chatchila the Inyan is not a mukbal the Inyan. Understand the Inyan. So even if you don't, it's not that b'mizgeres of the physical world, it was misamtzim to affect this physical world. The Inim el Chatchila has no medidus. Every mitzvah is that every davar mukbal has a certain area where it is. So if you want it to affect on another realm, it's going to have to come there. You see, it's saying this dogma. If you have a mashal sama mavis on the table, mamash a dangerous mashka on the table, and the doctor is going to say that api seichel, it's effect for such a thing to be on the table. It's dangerous for this to be on the table. It's mamash a dangerous thing. So if the sama mavis is going to go and move off because since the doctor said that it's heipach haseichel mamish, it's mufrech for such a thing to be on the table. It'll be a pele gadol. It's not the only way. The shtikol geshem is not affected by a svara from a doctor. You're gonna have to go and take it off the table. A physical hand it's a physical thing is affected by a physical hand. The fact that apiseichel, it's argued effect for svarim to be here after you learn. But it should be brought back. So it shouldn't. But the svarim aren't affected by apiseichel, the fact that it's not supposed to be here. Svarim are affected by physical things. So that's there. The svar is the mukbal. The svar is in elam haseichel kum teis that svarim have to be in the shelf after you finish using it. And elam haseichel kum teis that a sam hamav is not going to be on the table. That's an elam haseichel. But elam hamais kum teis says it. In order to affect keich hamais, you have to have something that exists in keich hamais. Mashiach in a psaka teira that it's chedesh ader. It's not that al pi a gewisser madrege metzias kum teis that she's 2 years old. The Eibusher says she's 2 years old. The Eibusher is not a madrege metzias. The Eibusher is not shaykhs to the whole musig of geder vagbal. The idea of geder vagbal is only shaykhs to begin with in gvul. The whole musig of makim to begin with only exists in gvul. So mainly he exists in all realms. Understand the Indian? It's a whole different type of. That's a klur. So mainly, if you say so, when we're speaking about the shalvation needs to be beginning of the maimer, we're saying there's a nivra. If atam chayes kom lepel, there's a nivra. There's a chayes which is malubish in the nivra. It's not that the ein sof kfi shehu is everywhere. That's a different word. When we say that there's keach hatzmicha in the ilan, so lepel there's a certain musig of tzmicha that expressed through the metzias of the ilan. When we say this word, so then we understand the musig of shinu. We have the inyan. We have, let's say, the chayes of tzmicha, the way it is mufshit from being mislabish in the trees, and we have the musig of chayes of tzmicha, the way it's mislabish in the trees and grows a specific amount, whatever it is. That's the l'chora shinui. But let's say we would say the fact that this happens to b'keich ein sof. In order to have a yesh ma'ayin, b'frat that the yesh is be'in areich from the ayin, so you have to have a keich ein sof. That itself wouldn't be a shayla of shinui. If the savas the way it comes inside the ein sof, since the ein sof, we're dealing with the bligval of elokus, which the elokus is higher than the whole musik of makim. So in order, when he says if Oliver saying it should be a nivra, he doesn't have to lower himself down that the ratzin should be masin, that that in the nivra's realm it should be nergesh that there's a ratzin. The alien could stay in his madrege kaviyach, in his ein sof. And if Oliver said there should be a velt, with verna velt, why is there? Because me ever the matasa, they just ain't sof. And if he says there should be gashmis, it's vern gashmis eichet. That's not going to be a shayla of shina. Shina is when you have the alien the way he's mufshit from the tachten, and then you have the alien he has to relate, he has to change, he has to suit himself to the tachten. You have the alien in tuefana. Mashiach, if the alien kameshu who has nagbalas. He doesn't have to lower himself down in order to affect the tachn, like I said when you get to the psak. He doesn't have to lower himself down in mitzamtzim lefi erech and aver in order to affect the guf darten of the ktanim. Lechatchil it's in any which has nagbalas. The same way they say about the Eibush, there's ein leitchila, the whole musik of zman doesn't apply to him. But mainly he's nitzchi, not because he relates to the musik of zman. Lechatchil is not shaykh to all these nagbalas, but mainly it's going to be everywhere. So the musig of being in a specific place doesn't exist like him. But mainly it's not shaykh to say he's only there, he's going to be everywhere. But then the etzem kamei shehu is nimtza b'kol makom. So there's no musig of tzimtzum v'shina. There's no yerida. So there's no shayla of shina. Understand what I'm saying? But he says the lashon here. He says pirsh shashpa ba'elamis. The mashmos is, even doesn't understand, but what ends up being is when you say the mashal when they get to the psak bezdin, so there's no shayla of shina. The bezdin doesn't have to be married to psak that she related to this guf. They pass cannot be tell the zankar fekach and b'meila vertase. Someone can say it's a shina. It's not a shina. That's the ratzin. I'm saying there's nothing outside of it's the ratzin being niskayim. So the emes is there's taken nothing besides for the fact that the ratzin is being niskayim. From the point of view of the psak, there's no metzias of a velt that's affected by the ratzin. Lechatchila, the ratzin is ein sof, but mainly it's the sky l'payil. Lechatchila has nagbalas. But here we're saying something else. Here we're saying, let's say this psula, this sektana take, is not margish the keich hapsak. I'm saying if someone wouldn't have known the din, there would be no doctor would be able to figure out from being misbeinin as that it came from a psak. Why? Because the psak take never left the world of the ratzin atayim. What I'm saying is, if you would say, if this house is keich ein sof, the avan I'm saying inside the psak bezdin, then there would be no way for us to see in Welt any expression of ein sof. Because if I stay there vert, what are we saying? Say, take when you get to the psak bezdin, when you get to the psula chazer. I don't have a tzveiter dugma in them. But what's the amidas advar? Vibad is all the ratz not teira. Vibad as the ratz na alien is. Should be mu'ubar. So that ratzin is the sky. That ratzin is ein sof. But mele, whatever the ratzin is, vertase. But in order for the ratzin to be the sky, does he have to leave its element? It has to now relate to a geshem. The alien kfi shehu is not mugbo. But mele, it's going to affect everywhere. But the question is now: will you be able to get that from the everywhere, the source that brought to the sin? That's the shayla. What I'm saying is, if you're going to say, you say that the Eibush is the complete vos, the Eibush is ein sof, meir lematase, as it's gewollt gevar na Welt. So the ratzin, let's take it in this way. The Eibush there's ratzin. There's ratzin el zena Welt, and since Oliver said is gevar na. So the fact that the world came into being is because the ratzin is niskayim l'poel. But the shayla now, so then we wouldn't be able to know from being mizbenin in Welt, so the garden from Welt, that there's ein sof. The klal is that whatever doesn't exist in Metzias, we can't be aware of. If we know of something, is because the inyan exists in the realm of Elam Hazar. Means the pile we have biyurim different. Let's say I'm not sure, but he says over here Ech le yeshem shinim bris elemis rabem vatzum ma'id. So you have Yerim Chassidus that in the Ribi Yischalkus Nevraim of Welt, or in the Ribi Elemis is a certain expression of Blikvul. The fact that there's a Samachal, there's a Riches, is Ribi Yischalkus. The fact that you have a mus that is Havas, that ever brings us in the Maimer of Tafshin Chav Gimel, that since this Havas is that there's in Yonam of Blikvul that you see in this Havas. It means if the fact that there was so that means that the Blikvul is not only in the realm of Ein Sof. Even in Welt, even in the realm of Welt, there you have Ein Sof. Not only in the realm of Ein Sof, he's not mugbal b'meilef, if he says so, vertaze. But then he doesn't have to leave his realm. The way he is in his element, which is mufshit from any type of mitzias, he's going to affect because kachal bertzeni. But here we're saying a different word. Here we're saying that there's a musig of Ein Sof which is expressed through the bria. The bria is there's fan elemis, mitzias of elemis, not Ein Sof. It's a mitzias of elemis which is not the Ein Sof of Elikus. There's a mitzias of elemis, and mitzias of elemis is an independent mitzias outside of Elikus. There's a mitzias of elemis, elemis rabban vatzum ma'id, outside of Ein Sof. And in these elemis, you're able to gain that there's a yanim of Ein Sof which is expressed in these elemis. That means that the Ein Sof is not only present within the realm of Ein Sof. Ein Sof is also present from the point of view of Welt, from the point of view of the Nivra. So that's in of Espalus and Shinui. You have the way Ein Sof, the way he is b'mhusehu, and you have the Ein Sof, the way he is reflected in Eilemis Rabban Batzim. And that's the Musik of Shinui v'Espalus. I understand the meaning. You can't just say that this Havas is Bekeach Ein Sof. Bekeach Ein Sof, there's no Shinim, it's at Blikvul if the Musik of Havas came. Because the fact that Ibish's Ein Sof is Blikvul, then there's no Shaila of Shinim L'chatchila. Because in order to affect this Havas, it doesn't have to affect the Tachten. The Eldin can stay in his Makam. And the Eldin Kfishu is Ein Sof. But here we're saying that the Tachten possesses the Eldin. Where the Indian of Blikvul didn't only stay in a Lukus Kaviyach, the Musik of Blikvul. And Olibert saying that there should be a Welt, but there was a Shpa of Ein Sof and Elemis. That Elemis from their point of view expressed Blikvul. Versteht the meaning? That's why Dib was not good enough. And there's a Shaila of Shin, the Gabi Ein Sof too. What I'm saying is, if you have a musig that, let's say, if you use a dogma of Ratzin. So Chassidus says this, but sometimes you have this marshal. That Ratzin is the Meshichas and Nefesh itself. So you can have a tzir where, let's say, the Nefesh wants, and even if it says that even if the Evarim don't necessarily feel B'chal, sometimes a person won't even be conscious that he wants, but automatically the Evarim are going to do according to the way his Nefesh wants. Since the Nefesh is the premise of the Evarim, so the Nefesh has a certain reflection of this type of Ein Sof. The Ratzin is connected to that part in the Nefesh that doesn't have a Mokim. And if Oliver Tzene kach v'kach, automatically the Evarim are going to do what the Ratzin wants. Because that's a double Yitzim Neklal. So that would be, but in that case, in the Evarim, you wouldn't be able to, the Evarim don't feel it there's a Ratzin. You can't sense something that doesn't exist in your world. So the Shaila is, in Eilemis, how do we have expressions in Eilemis of the Blikvul of Elikus? Let's say we know today, in order to have a Yesh Ma'ayin, since the Yesh is Be'ein Arei from the Ayin, in order to have a Yesh Ma'ayin, you have to, it's not enough, you need to have a Keicha Blikvul. How do we know about it? Because the Musig of Blikvul is expressed through the Inavas Havas Yesh Ma'ayin. It means that the Musig of Yesh Ma'ayin contains within itself the Blikvul. That's not the Ein Sof Kfi Shehu Mufshit. That's the Ein Sof, the way he's expressed through the Pu'ul of Havas Yesh Ma'ayin. That's the Ein of Shinui. If the Evan Havas would just be al derech like the Psak with the Bezdin, then the Shinui Aguf doesn't contain within itself the Keich of the Psak. It doesn't express the Keich of the Psak. The Psak doesn't relate B'chlal to Gashmis. It doesn't relate to the Makim where it's played. The Psak is an Indian Mufshit from any tzir that it's Chedesh Mu'uber. And since it's Ein Sof, maybe it's going to be like that everywhere. But not that you have this Indian the way it's going to be expressed in that tzir. Here, in the Metzias of Eilemis, you have the way the Eilemis express Blikvul. So that's not enough just to say that because the Blikvul is Nimtzu B'Kol Makim. It's the Blikvul. There's the Blikvul the way he is been Kaimer, b'muhusay, and you have the way he's expressed and the way he's brought out. The way Eilemis bring out the Nekodah of Blikvul. So that's the Chol HaShayla of Shinei and the Spilus. I'm saying I'm not. I'm saying Kenzain. I'm stam saying. I don't know if that's a true word. It's a Remes Valma. He doesn't say this.
You're saying is
What do you mean? I'm not, I mean, yeah. The lashon he says here, hashpa ba'ilmus. That means that it's not stam. There's hashpa in ilmus. Lahaves el ilmus. Lahachis el ilmus. There's an in of keich ein sof, which the keich yesh ma'ayin contains within himself an ability of ein sof.
what does it mean that we only see things that are mitzias?
What I'm saying is liyitzir. What I'm saying is if the I'm saying is even b'Parshas Dvarim. How do you know that they started the different rayos that you can't say that the world is that there's no makra mahava because the world is because the davra nifsad and the fact that it's mukbal and zman is a raya that it's not true. Anything that anything that ends has to be that it's not that has a makra different rayos. But let's say there was no klal yaseichel. Saying is, let's say that brings this thing. Sometimes it brings this comment from. You say 2 plus 2 is 4. There's no way it could be 5. Why can't it be 5? Because there's certain rules of Metzias, and the rules of Metzias is that 2 plus 2 equals 4. The Eibush himself is not mugble in any rules. He created all the rules. He could have made the rules for character. 2 plus 2 equals 6, and then there would be no way we should understand that 2 plus 2 equals 4. The same way today it's mufrich to say 2 plus 2 equals 4 because that's why is it mufrich? Because the Metzias is nishtazir. The Gidra Metzias are, the rules are that 2 and 2 is only going to give you the result of 4. And a cause has to be before an effect. That's all Gedarim the Eibush created. If the Gedarim from Fakert. And if we couldn't make the Gedarim Fakert, that a Mesubah has to come dafke before a Sim. The effect has to come dafke before the cause. And if the cause comes before the effect, it would be a Pella. Means the fact that we understand things a certain way is because the reality is that way. Why can't we understand that 2 plus 2 is 4? Because the Seichel Adam can't comprehend such a thing. Because the Metzias is nicht dasé. But if the Metzias what gewen anders. But every understanding you understand because the reality is that way. And and there's rules of reality. There's rules what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. If the whole concept of I'm saying what were we asking the Gabi Ein Sof. Saying we're saying now in order to have a yesh ma'ayin, you need a koyach of Ein Sof. So we see that this activity of the Havas Yishma'ayin expresses Bligvul. If the idea of Ein Sof wouldn't have been as nimshach, wouldn't have been present within the realm of the Pa'ul of Yishma'ayin, then you would see a Pa'ul of Yishma'ayin. You wouldn't come from there to say there's an Ein Sof there. If the whole idea of Ein Sof wouldn't exist in our concept. If the Musik of Ein Sof was never slavish in the Bria, the same way from if there would be a psak in Bezdin, but the Ktanes and the Chveis and the ganze Welt, they'll never know from there there's a psak of Bezdin. They won't know how it happens. That there's a psak of Bezdin. There's no way to identify from the Pu'ula the psak, because the psak doesn't relate to the Pu'ula. It wasn't slavish in this Pu'ula. The psak stayed in his own element. And the way he is in his own element, he has no limits. But it's not that the psak was mislabish and related to the tzir of the pula that he was pile. So if you only know of that tzir, there's no way they're going to be traced back to the blik vol, because it doesn't exist in that tzir. So you can have a kasha. You have a kasha. You want to, whether you have a kasha, you want to have a kasha. Why is there a kasha? Because we know that a davar kasha is only affected by another davar kasha. I didn't see a davar kasha. So you have a kasha. Let's say that if this hav was to be created, if this havas would only be the darg of a malakalam, only the darg of dibur would be mislabish in the bria, and the keich ein sof would be mahave in a way that the ein sof, the way he is in kaimeh. I'm saying the psak bez. So then we wouldn't understand. Mitzad gvul, we only understand that a yesh has to have a kiruf to the ayin. But how could there be in this hava yesh, which has a richuk, there's no erech at all. So we wouldn't understand how the yesh came from ayin. But we wouldn't say that the fact that the yesh came from the ayin. So we see over here that because the makar is bligvul, is ein sof. That we wouldn't have the whole concept of ein sof wouldn't exist. So we have a kasha. Vi kommt der yesh from the ayin. We have many kashas. But to say that's an expression of the fact that the Eibush is bligvul. If the concept of bligvul wasn't present in our realm, the payol, if he doesn't, he says, this is the way he says. He says, "Lidua this havos b'keich ein sof dafke," means that his havos, in his havos contains. How do you know this havos b'keich ein sof? It says, the Yadua. His Havas B'Keach Ein Sof. Means that within this Havas we see that it's an effect of Ein Sof. It's a Pa'ula that contains within itself a Keach of Ein Sof. So that's a Shail of Shin. Und versteht die Minion? Sie ist nicht so klar. Huh?
How do you see the insect from saying? What's the
The Payal, he brings to that.
it's like what you were saying from that kid before.
Nachamal from that Keda? No, it's Havas. He means it's Havas Yesh Ma'ayin. The fact that the Yesh is Berichu Gomer from the Ayin. It means that the Yesh has no Erech to the Ayin. If the Makra Mahavet was a Davar Mugbal, a Davar Mugbal could only affect a Yesh which has a Yachas to the Ayin. The Payal, the Yesh, is Be'en Arech. To be Mahava Nibur, which is Be'en Arech, that's not the word I was saying of Gashmi, it's a different word. That's the word of Ein Arech, and that's Machriya to Keich Ein Sof. I was saying something else. The fact that the Yesh is Be'en Arech to the Ayin, so that only a Makra which is Ein Sof, which has no Akbalis, could be Mahava Yesh Ma'ayin. A Yesh could be Mahava Yesh, could have an effect on a Tachten, which is Be'en Arech far from him. Because he has no Akbalis. If the Yesh had an Erech to the Makr, so then the Makr, that's Seichel could be Mashpia to Midas. That's not Ein Sof. Seichel has a certain Tchum. But Seichel could be Midas are Kalim for him. So if the Makr would have a certain Akbala, so he can be Mashpia on a Dover which is Be'en Arech. The fact that he can have a Yesh which is Be'en Arech to the Ayin, that's because the Makr is Ein Sof, especially to say. He's Bligvul. So but that you see within the idea of affecting a Makabel, which is Be'en Arech, that idea contains within itself, it expresses the Tchuna of Bligvul. So that's already in Avashpa. That's not that the Bligvul is Bimkoime. You have the Bligvul the way it is Bimkoimehu. And you have the Bligvul the way it's reflected, or the way it's Mizbata through the Pa'ula of Yeshmai. And that's B'dakus Hashinit. Because you have the Ein Sof, you have the Musik of Bligvul the way it is in its own Mohos. And you have the way Metzias Shechutzim and reflects it. It's Havas Yeshmai. The Yesh is not Ein Sof. And you have the way that Metzias reflects in the Bligvul. That's the in of Shiniv Yisraelis.
That's what it says.
This is Kabbalah Marishenu.
That's what it says.
No, the word of God I was saying last time that where he says this I'm saying the Musik of Bligvul. There he speaks that you have in Veld in of Shlilas Kol HaTorah. That's Gashmis. That's Shin. This word that I'm saying now is the Yesh is Be'en Arech to the Ayin. But Fakir, the fact that there's Nishav Azach, which is Be'en Arech to the Makr, that brings out the fact that the Makr is Ein Sof. So it expresses something. What Rebbe Shmuel brings earlier that in order to Mahavi, you have to Shlilas Kol HaTorah, that's the word of Gashmis, doesn't express anything. Not the word of Ein Arech either. But the Mekubala Marishenom Geret, Lepel the Yesh is Be'en Arech Vait from the Ayin. See, Mahava Nivrush is Be'en Arech Legabi the Makr, you need a Keich Bligvul. But what do we see? But the Mice is, in other words, where is present not the Bligvul? Only in the element of Ein Sof, or Lepel, the Pa'ula of Yesh Ma'ayin expresses Bligvul. Lepel, the Bligvul is reflected, is Nimshach in Achaplatz, in a Yesh. Elam is bring out the Bligvul. So that's the end of Shiniv Yispalis. You have the Bligvul the way it is B'mhusay, and you have the way it's the Slabish, the way it's the Zgal in Elamis.
The bit of it is in Rias Elamis. It's not.
Is not the Elim Kvishu Mamish.
I'm saying the bit of the Bligvul is in the way because the
In
Nibra.
Kamapratam, I'm saying. In Arecha the Nibra. I think that's the word.
He's saying in the inner of the Nibra that is the bit of the Bligvul.
Yeah, in this Habas. It says Lohul Levadu Keif V'chot L'Havas Ma'ayin Liyesh. Means there's a Pa'ula. Say Pasha said the word. A person does a Pa'ula. Zrika 7. So the Keich HaTnua is bali they bitu in the Keich HaTnua in this Pa'ula of Zrika 7. Because Zrika 7 cannot happen without a Keich HaTnua. How do you know it can happen? Because this Pa'ula expresses the Keich HaTnua. So there is the Pa'ula of creating a Yesh, which is the Ein Arech to the Ayin. That Pa'ula is proofs Miltus Neinsa. That means that Pa'ula is an expression of a Keich Bligvul. It's not said that if there would be no kiruf between the Elyon and the Pa'ula, and the fact that the Nivra was created was since Oliver Tzene Vertaze, then but Oliver Tzene the Abishar is Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof is if Oliver Tzene to be a Yesh with Verna Yesh, then from the Yesh you wouldn't be able to prove the Ein Sof. In the Yesh was nicht gehat, because he's the way the Ein Sof is bimkaimai. So be the matas if you want to say Yesh, it'll be a Yesh. But then from the point of view of the Yesh, you wouldn't be able to trace back to the Ein Sof. Here we're saying that from the Pu'ula of Yesh Ma'ayin, I get traced back to Bligvul. Because the Bligvul is nimshach in the Bria.
How do you see that?
What do you mean, how do we see
How do
it?
you see that?
Because they have the Kabbalah Rishonim said that from the fact that there was this Havas Yesh Ma'ayin, Zetman from them, the Keich HaBlikvul. He says, V'yadua, this Havas V'keich Ein Sof, what's this Yadua? It's Yadua that we, in order to have a, if the Ein Sof, if this Havas would be in a Eifin, al derech like the Psak of Bezdin, that all they were saying is Sigmar Avelt, it wouldn't be a Dua that it's Havas V'keich Ein Sof. You'd have a Havas of a Yesh Ma'ayin, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know that there's Havas V'keich Ein Sof. What are you gonna do?
From the fact that it's Benedict, you see that's inside.
Yeah.
Saying it wouldn't be Benedict.
We would have a kasha.
You're saying it
That's
wouldn't
Kneir
we
The
can't-
whole
we can't
musik of
just
Ein
apply.
Arechi wouldn't be. Could also be.
Huh?
The whole true musik of Ein Arechi we wouldn't have had. We wouldn't have known about the Ein Sof. But I'm saying, but the way he says it here is the maskana. The Pearl steht in Chassidus that we have rayas that this havas or biurim that this havas is v'keich Ein Sof. So it's not just that it's when you say that according to Kabbalah Marashim, it's not the pshat that the mishana the psulim is v'keich Ein Sof. It's nothing to do with that pu'ula. That pu'ula is not the keich hapsak. It's the psak is Ein Sof. Here we're saying that in this havas is contains within itself the keich Ein Sof. Yeah, I'm saying here he says two pratim. He says, yeah, I'm not saying this is the andere pratim. I'm saying that's a minion that the shinu is because the inyan of bligvol is not only within the realm of bligvol, also within the pu'ula you have an expression of the bligvol. The Ein Sof is also in the pu'ula. That's the real say. I'm saying that's not meine Biurim. But this word, that's no problem. But this word Elmas Rambatzum, I'm saying. He says over here that there's lahavis elumis have in of Ein Sof and lahachis elumis. First, steht some chassidus that there's the ribi is the inyan of blig vol is expressed also the ribi nivraim. Good. I'm saying stam kenzayin. I'm saying pashas for chayis elumis. You have the chay. He says you have dibur. I mean the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya L'mashal that there's chayis mitzat seviv. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. But that's taken. But the Alter Rebbe, but it's behelen. That means the nivras. Since it's the elin k'mei shubim k'mei, without having a shaychus to the mekabel, the nivras taken a margish the Indian. Why aren't we margish it? Why can't the nivra feel the chayis Ein Sof that's melubish in inside the Ein Sof inside seviv? Because the fact that chayis is melubish in the nivra, the chayis is inside the seviv, is because Ein Sof is not shaychus to sagbal. So the way he is b'mhusa, he's everywhere. That's a different Indian. But within the but he's not present because he relates to our tchunas. Doesn't relate to our tchunas. But the way he is b'mhusa, he's everywhere. It's a different Indian. Here we're saying that within the tchunas of the nivra, we could trace back the bligvul. So the bligvul is not only nimtza in his mahus, in his realm. He's also the gather of elements is machriach, or possesses within itself Ein Sof. And that's a shayla of shinu. Yeah, there's pratim. So wie haben sie verändert? So im Shukeach Ein Sof mamish chadish ma'in liyesh ein ze eis is pas ba'atzmus habeira and l'chura the inyan of Ein Sof bligvul is only in atzmus habeira. So l'chura it's in of shini. Can't say that it's a psa'arable vad. There was in a chitzeni. It's an inyan of Ein Sof, and Ein Sof is according to the Ramak. I mean that's the pashas of only atzmus is Ein Sof. So you have an inyan of Ein Sof of atzmus habeira which is affecting the bria. So auf dem haben sie geantwortet, lefi sheis havos hu adei rotzen er kesse. Wie divrim Kabbalah Marashim. Shprinas rotzen ze hu Ein Sof mamish. Shprina of rotzen. Shprinas rotzen ze hu Ein Sof mamish. Let's get the brags a second. Zeh the sfira lu sharotzen er kesse shprinas Ein Sof. L'chin ayodi hu eis havos. So what's their answer? Their answer is that the havos tak is bekeich Ein Sof, but the inyan of Ein Sof, not the Ein Sof of atzmos, the Ein Sof of kesse. This you have to remember. So they're not saying that Keser Shlilas Kol HaTorah. They're saying that Keser is Ein Sof. This Ein Sof, which is expressed in Shabbos Yishma'ayin, That's the first musig of Bligvul, of Ein Sof L'Spashtusei. In other words, in order to create a yesh, which is be'ein arech to the makir. Only a makir which has no makir, which has no gvul, which is Ein Sof L'Spashtusei. Only he could reach, so to speak. Only he could affect a yesh, which is be'ein arech klal. Yeah, that's versteht. So that musig of Ein Sof, Keser is Ein Sof. Doesn't nicht Atzmus. Atzmus Shloas Kol HaTeirim. The music of Shloas Kol HaTeirim is bechal not expressed in Welt. Das ist da bei Atzmus. In Welt is like there's a certain expression of Ein Sof through the Metzias of Welt, within the pool of Yeshmai. But that in of Ein Sof is the etzem in of Bligvul, of Ein Sof L'Spashtusei. At that in you have in Keser. So the Gabi etzem is audible vad. Punkt the Eibush Shloas Kol HaTeirim. So the same way Gvul is audible vad, the Gabi Atzmas Bligvul is selbe Zach wie Gvul. So ani a violation is. There's in a Bligvul in Welt. Bligvul is nicht that. Bligvul is Keser. That's the Nekudah. Let's see how it. So Hainu Dol Daitom Haratzne Keser B'chinas Ein Sof Mamish Mitzad Atzmei is Ein Sof L'Spashtusei, is Ein Sof Mamish, the first type of Ein Sof Mitzad Atzmei. Why? Look, how can be Mitzad Atzmei? Look, Kol Mashiach L'Tchili Yesh L'Tichla. It says Yema Shem Yema Shem Gosem Pekad Avos V'Shmei L'Vad Shmei Hainu B'chinas. It says the Ashal Nivra Elam Yishmei L'Vad. What's the Pshat Ashal Nivra Elam? So they say Shmei Hainu B'chinas Ratz V'chen Shmei became Antri Ratz. Me'achar Ashal Nivra means before Bria, bore his Chashis. There was not only the Eibush himself. Who? So what's the klal? Something which is chadish, he's mugdir and makim. So Meir is not in Sof L'Spashtusei. So if ein leitchila, so Meir ein leitchila. L'shita sam shmei ein leitchila. Because kadin musay is better. Because הקודש חלקה בשביל heavy בשם ביר סיידס on Banzal. שהכסר kadin כקדמן אינסוף. kadman אינסוף. Vime yesam alul man atzmos from da shon kadm gud musis war. Zer khlem na hainem shon de shlei is man shlei ha rasm khulu. Is the magar the beer? So maybe I'll just maybe it hasn't say for erchim, I don't know. The bill hasn't say for erchim is to go beer one of them belum. But the nekudas advarim is that's the kula alma. Atzmos is shlos kol teir. And it's not shaykh to say the parsha is much more solution here that from when there's who, there's also shmei. A person werd geboren, you didn't have to decide. You were born, you have keich haratzen, and you have keich hatainug, and you don't decide anything. The Eibush is not mucher from Vanent there's a lukus, so he's also has ratzen, he has this pchina, that pchina. The Eibush is not forced in anything. Shlos kol hateirim. He's not. Nothing has to be. Whatever he wants, he decides. I mean, so the parsha Avada Keser is a mechudesh. Put like everything else is a mechudesh. What does it mean over here that Keser is a kadman? What's the mean this? They was just forced to have a darg of Keser. What does it mean? But the diuk, the lashon he says over here is Hainem Shem Shalei Hayizman Shalei Yi Aratzach. Means there's two different types of agbolas. There's agbola of makim and there's agbola of zman. So what we said before, in order for something, the klal that kama sheyesh le'tchila yesh le'tichla, the agbola of having a safe to Spashtusei, that being mugdar makim, is anything which has the agbola of zman. But if you only have the agbola of makim, then you could have it's in le'tichla. The klal kama she'in le'tichla is dafka within the agbola of zman, not within the agbola of makim. So shitasim keser is ein sof because keser is not mugbal in the realm of zman. That's mean that's l'chor keser also is mugbal in the musig of zman. Once it wasn't, it's a mechudesh. Amol das nicht gewesen. So what's the avan? So the kudah is that see even the parsha said what's the kudah according to this shit is that what's the musig of kama sheyesh l'tchila yesh l'tichla? If something be'etzem doesn't have to be, what's yesh l'tchila? Means be'etzem doesn't have to be. It's not only the word the Eibush had created. That's the technicality of the word. What's the avan of the word kama sheyesh l'tchila yesh l'tichla? Be'etzem doesn't exist. So be'etzem doesn't have to be. The fact that it exists is a chiddush. What is uvgemach? So what is uvgemach by definition it's not insaf. There where it was made. So this idea of something, what the shaila is mitzad the gedorim of mitzias, mitzad seichel. Let's say, what type of how does mitzias begin? In other words, you say that you say this room, the fact that there's farm here and tables, that was brought in after. How was the room before anything was done? How did the room look? With svarm or without? See, before anything was done, the room mitzad atzmei was empty. say, but the room inside Atzma, you can't even say empty because the whole musik of empty was created by Bria Shemaim Baritz. That there was before the world was created, the whole musik of empty didn't exist. But we're now within the realm of within the Gdarim of this room already. We're standing in this room. I want to say, what's the chiddush legabe this room? What's the chiddush? The fact that this room is empty doesn't have to be created. Once you made the room, you didn't have to create that it should be empty. That's a fact that it's empty. That's the way the room begins. And bringing Sfarim is a chiddush. Saying everything, the musig of tchila and tichla is sevensach. Everything has its in vasfarim adregim in it. That's so. Makim means every single nivra has his tchum. You see, there's Elam Haza Gashmi. It's the world of Gashmi. It's the world of Ruchnis. When you want to begin Gashmi? It's in the of Gashmi start. What's the basic reality of Gashmis, and what has to, even after you have the realm of Gashmis, what has to be invented? What's a chiddush? What has to be in this chiddush? So you have the basic tchunis of Geshem, that without them you have no Gashmis b'chal. And then there is, even after you have Elam Haza Gashmi, so you have the way. How would this world be the way it is b'tzad atzmei? And what has to be? What's the chiddush? What was this chiddush? What has to be effective? What has to be created? See, a person, in order to talk, you have to do something. In order to be quiet, that's the natural state. Without doing anything, you're quiet. Talking is a chiddush. Talking is going to do a pula. Being quiet is not a pula. Being quiet is being not doing anything. You say even being quiet is a chiddush, because the neshama before it was neslabish neguf, the whole idea of being quiet didn't exist. But the neshama, the way it's lamayla is not. That's in a different element. That's in a different realm. But in the realm, the way the person is as a neshama lubash beguf, what's the natural state for this realm? The natural state for this realm is to be in a state of quiet. And speaking is not a chiddush. It's not that when you're speaking, now I'm in a new mode, and the natural state of that mode is to talk. Speaking in that state, in that mode that I'm in now, speaking is the chiddush. Speaking needs a makir. Not speaking doesn't need a makir. That's the interesting to say the Akbal of Zman and the Akbal of Makim. The Akbal of Makim is, Avadi, you say, the person, I want to bring out this, that there's the Akbal of Zman means that when you say that something didn't exist at a certain time, and at 1 o'clock it came to be, that means that within its own realm it's a chiddush. It's be'etzem dafner zayin, not be'etzem dafner zayin, is be'etzem mitzad higher daggers, doesn't have to be like that. Mitzad this mitzias, really it should be otherwise. Without being mechadish anything, without affecting anything, without going and inventing anything, how would it be naturally? It would be without it. When you say there's akbal of makim, you're saying that there's a higher realm where this inyan doesn't exist. But this inyan doesn't exist everywhere. But in its realm, this is the natural state, the way things have to be. So it doesn't have to be in its chadish. You understand the meaning? Chassidus always brings that the Gabi Zav. So you have a din that is only becomes tar mituma. We just learned the Rambam. We don't have these halachas, but that's some halachas. That in order to be tar from tuma zav, you have to be tevel amayim chayim. So it has to be meimayim, not stam water like mikveh. It has to be meimayim. So the Gemara says, and the Mishnah says that any nahar that any mayim that within 7 years it gets dried out the mayim. So it's possible it's mayim mechazim, it's not mayim chayim, it's mayim mechazim. So this says since every 7 years, within 7 years it becomes dry, so it's not an emes mayim. So why is it not an emes mayim? Because what's the emes mayim? If the nature of this thing is that it's a stream, if the nature of this place is that it's a stream, why within 3 years it becomes ice? The fact that within 3 years this place becomes dry land is right. The be'etzim, this place is not a stream. Be'etzim is dry land. For different zaitika reasons, because there's the cloudy weather, different. Maybe there's water here. If the nature of this place was to be a stream, so why mitamol 1 year yeah, 1 year not? The fact that 1 year and 1 year not means that without any external reasons, the place misad atzmai is dry land. Because of external reasons, so there's water there. So why don't you say the same thing? Even let's say you have a stream that never ends, that goes, that is skemolish nifsak, but still the stream only exists here. It doesn't exist somewhere else. That means that the makim mitzad atzmai, the nature of the place from its very essence is not a stream. Because if the nature of Elam Haza was a stream, then it should have been everywhere. The fact that the stream is only this place, that it's not, the fact that it's not everywhere is a siman that the mitzias be'etzin is in the code of this mitzias is not mechayiv to be a stream. But that's different type of akbala. Avada, there's this place and there's that place. But the Hagbalah Zman is a whole different type of Hagbalah. The Hagbalah Zman is that even where you are, your mode, the way you're in, is a chiddush. That's not the way you are supposed to be. So when talking by definition is a pula, it's the person is not in a mode the way he is ba'atzim, the way he is without affecting doing something, without doing a pula. Mashiach being quiet is also a chiddush. Legabi neshama shel ma'ala is also a davar chodesh. But mitzad the matzav the way I am now, mitzad the darga of being in neshama luvish beguf, being quiet doesn't have something. I don't have to affect to be quiet. That's the natural state of being. So we say like this: the klal, we have a klal. Come on, yesh le'tchila, yesh le'tichla. This klal is only something that within something. What's the havana? Whatever has a beginning means. Be'etzem doesn't have to be. The fact that it exists is a chiddush. The fact that it's a chiddush, so it only exists where the chiddush, where was the chaddush. Mashiach, something which ain't le'tchila, that means it doesn't have to be in a chaddush. The mitzvah is the way it is. That's the way things are be'etzem. Doesn't have to be affected. So ein le'tchila, ein le'tichla. So the gabi this in is not negeya the akbala of makim. It's negeya the akbala of zman. Means the vart is the Kabbalah Rishonim learned the Eibush is shlilas kol ha'Torah. The Eibush is not forced in anything. The question is shlilas kol ha'Torah is higher than the musik of Metzius. There is no rules of reality there. Shlilas hagvul, shlilas habligvul is higher than the whole built in Metzius nimsa. But then there is the Eibush created a reality. He created a Metzius which has different characteristics, has different darim. How does the musik of Metzius begin? That's the shayla. What's the most basic form? What's the initial state of reality? What's Metzius the way it is be'etzem? So that they said tziyur, gvul, chachma, chesed. That's even within the musik of Metzius, it's a chiddush. Why does it have to be dafka chachma? Why does it have to be dafka this tziyur or that tziyur? Mashik in a tnu of bligvul of pshittis, that doesn't have to be in a chadash. How does apiseichel? How does Metzius have to begin? How does the Metzius have to begin? And even that there's no tziyur prati. It's the etzvin of Metzius without a specific form of Metzius. That's etzvin of Metzius. So that doesn't have to be in a chadash. Avada the Eibush could have made klolim otherwise. But all the bertzin should be a Metzius of there should be the inyan of shlilas kol ha'Torah is the way the Eibush is be'etzem, which is beyond the whole concept of Metzius. That's built in Metzius. But then the Eibush wanted that he should be expressed and he should be in his gala within the realm of Metzius. What's the initial state or the highest state of Metzius? Al Piseichel, the highest state and the initial state of Metzius is the Metzius, the way it's not mukbah in a specific form. That's the inyan of bligvul. The fact that shlilas kol ha'Torah, that's the Metzius doesn't begin with shlilas kol ha'Torah. That there's a Metzius, there's a lukus which is higher than the whole musig of Metzius, all the gdarim of Metzius. But the Meret vu heit zechan the musig of the musig of existence. The musig of existence begins with the concept of bligvul. And then the fact that there's different types of Metzius, there's chachma, chesed, gvura, teferes, that's already a chiddush. Even after there's the realm of being, the realm of Metzius, the musig of tziyur is by definition a chiddush. What's up is der tziyur? What's up is dafke the form of chachma or chesed? But the fact not having a specific form, ein sof, that's not something which has to be in a chadash. Mitzad gidra Metzius, mitzad tzeichel. So meaning that they held that the ratzin, which is the initial state of gidei lukus, the way a lukus is nisgala and nirgash, how much Metzius is able to be margash from a lukus, the etzem the etzem of Metzius is ratzin, is kesed. That's the etzem of Metzius. You say me have what's the etzem of a person? You see, the etzem of a person is the way he is in neshama l'mayla. That's a different darga and ganzen, and there's no effect between the neshama l'mayla to the way the neshama is lamata. What's the initial state of a human being? The initial state of a human being is the way. How is he be'etzem? Let's see. The way he is mitzad is that he's not. The fact that he's silent. The fact that he's speaking. That's already a shinui. That's already not the way he's be'etzem. You have to go do a pu'ula. So al derech zeh, within the gdarim of seder shtalshalos, within the realm of Welt, the musig of bligvul doesn't have to be in his chadash. The musig of bligvul is not a chiddush. It's ein litchila. What does it mean ein litchila? It doesn't have the akbala of zman. The akbala of zman means that within this realm it had to be in his chadash. That's the akbala of zman. Means till 1 o'clock you weren't talking. This same reality, till 1 it wasn't talking. After 1 it was talking. So that means that this reality, how is he be'etzem? How is he without inventing anything within him, without affecting something? In what state is he? And that initial state doesn't have to be affected. That's the way he is naturally. See, but you have another realm of reality where this whole mitzvah doesn't exist. Good, we're not dealing with that realm. But that realm doesn't affect this realm. That's a different realm leganza. There's the realm of atzmos, which is shilas kol ateirim, and then there's the realm of mitzvahs. Wie hebt sich an der Musik mitzvahs? That there's a musik of blikvol. You versteht the meaning? He says this. He says lashon. He says, "Dai toam shukadin kad musis barach." Tzarich leimer dahainu mishum shaloi hayezman shaloi yiyah ratzin. How do you attach it? Means there was never a time that ratzin didn't exist. There's mekaymis that ratzin doesn't exist. Ratzin is blikvol. Ratzin is the musik of pshittis. It's not shilas kol ateirim. Shilas kol ateirim, the whole musik of ratzin doesn't exist. And the ratzin is mechudesh mamish. But that's from the point of view of shilas kol ateirim, ratzin is mechudesh. But shilas kol ateirim is beyond the idea of mitzias. It's built to mitzias. But mitzias means a specific type of being. The lepel, if around the musik from not where the Eibusher is, when there is no musik of mitzias altogether. The Eibusher himself exists in a whole different realm. But then all the saying there should be a velt, and there should be a musik called a mitzias with the gedarim of existence. And then within that realm, there was never a time where Kesser didn't exist. There was never a zman that Kesser didn't exist. There was a zman that they didn't exist. What does it mean that they didn't exist? In their realm, gufa their chiddush. You're in a slavish. How is a person be'etzim? He's sitting down to learn the Gemara. He has to activate the seichel and learn the Gemara. How is he? What is a person without doing anything? What is he in his natural state without going to affect anything? Whatever the tzir is. So that it doesn't have to be in a chadash. You don't have to be mechadash not doing anything. As mechadash doing something, not doing anything, you don't have to be mechadash. So Keser is the mitzias kameshi hi be'etzim. But the Eibush is not mitzias b'chlal. The Eibush is b'chlal higher than the whole musik of mitzias. Menetach wie hebt sich an gile lekus in welt. That's the shayla. Avad is higher. There's a place where there's no makam altogether. But within wie hebt sich an welt. That's the shayla. There was never a time where Keser didn't exist. That's kadmi kadet mitzias bar. No, Keser mitzad shus kol terem darf nicht sein kein Keser. Keser is not ein sof in the sense that it exists everywhere. The Eibush is mechadish it. But from when all they were saying there should be the musik of a velt, that's the way the mitzvah of velt begins. That's the atzmius of the mitzvah elements. The etzem of velt is ein sof. Means what's the initial gili elikus? That's shaykhs to be nisgali in velt. The shlis kol teirim is v'chal higher than the whole musik of mitzvahs. Built mitzvahs ninsi. But what's the initial musik of elikus that's shaykhs to be nisgali in elements? That's ein sof. That's keser. Hecher from keser can never nish wissen. Not only never, it cannot be expressed in mitzvahs. The enough shlis kol teirim. So what's the initial most say elikus without tzimtzum, legabe velt, without any tzimtzumim is ratzin, is blikvol. Now, but within the mitzvahs of velt gufe, there's chachma, there's ches. That's already tzimtzumim within that inyan gufe. That's already a chiddush. So, in order to be ein sof l'espashtuse, to not be something which is within its realm is a chiddush, is going to be mukbal. But something which in its realm is not a chiddush, it's going to be ein sof within its realm.
What does that mean? To be a chiddush in its realm or not?
What does that mean? I'm saying that's what I'm saying. The dugma when you get what I'm saying is that we understand that is the fact that we're quiet, not speaking, is that deeper or stronger than speaking, or it's the same. Do you have to do anything to be quiet? But you have to do something to speak. So that means that being quiet is does not have to be made. It is that way. That's the way it is. Shaking speaking has to be made, and if it has to be made, so anything which has to be made it exists only dependent of how much energy you put into it. It's going to be limited. So why is it that being quiet? So why is it? Because the person naturally, the natural state of the human being is that he's not doing anything. That's the natural state. If you say, yes, why are you going to talk? That's a pool already. You're going to do something. So that's well, the question is the neshama, the way the neshama is the ma'ila. The concept of quiet doesn't either exist. So the concept of being quiet was Nischadesh. Do we have such a question? The neshama de'elam, the way it was Namayla, doesn't really is a different caliber. B'chlal. We left that energy. Neshama de'elam is neshama the way it is Namayla. That we left that realm. Within the realm that we are now, what's the natural state of this realm? The natural state of this realm, and whatever the natural state is, that's going to be deeper ingrained in the Metzias, always deeper ingrained than the mode that you have to affect. What I'm trying to bring out is there's a certain besides for Atzmos, nothing has to be. Nothing has to exist. Everything was a Chodesh. No question, everything was a Chodesh. The Musik of Bligvo, everything was a Chodesh. But the question is like this. According to Mekubal HaMarishainim, the Atzmos HaBeireh Shlilas Kol HaTorah. The reality is limited. What do you mean limited? The reality is existence has a taich. Existence has already a meaning. Atzmos is higher than the whole idea of existence. The Metzias of Atzmos cannot be expressed within the realm of Nivraim. Because this is Shlilas Kol HaTorah. No gather at all. And this is already a certain musik, a certain taich. So the Avadim said that the Eivish wanted it not to be a Welt, and didn't have to be anything. But all the Bertzin should be a Welt, and the Eivish wanted that he should be Nizgal in Welt. So what's the La'achrish all the Bertzin should be a Welt, let's say. What's the initial state? And the Eivish made Chukei Abriya. Mitzat Chukei Abriya, the way the Eivish is eingestellt, the Mitzias, the Inyan, the way it has to be be'etzem is Bligvo, is Pshitis, is no Tzir. Tzir is a Chiddush. Pshitis is not a Chiddush. Within the realm of Welt. Within the realm of the Metzias Abriya. Understand what I'm saying? So Mele Bligvo doesn't need a makim. It doesn't have. Within the realm of Welt. It doesn't exist because it's not existing because of a reason. It exists because that's the way things are. Within our realm, Bligvo, that's the way it is. This is reality. This is the truth of reality. From our point of view, the truth of reality is Bligvo. Ashegin ad Metzias Mugbal, it was Nischadesh. It's not the way the Inyanim are be'etzem. And the emes is ain't something special to say. It's really to end to sense.
When you say Makim, this place.
Makim means that in the darga, in his darga, he's here only with a certain amount. But if the way you are, that's the emes of the sin. It doesn't have to be Nischadesh. So it's not you're not, you don't possess only how much was given to you. This is the way it is. Yeah. See later, that's the Chiddush Alter Rebbe of Eir. The Chiddush Alter Rebbe is that the Metzias also all the saying should be a Welt, and the Alter Rebbe's Chiddush of Eir Mein Amar is Eir on one hand is Gilui. Eir on one hand is Gilui is that he's Nirgash and Metzias, Spashtus. But what's Nirgash and Metzias? The Emes Kamei Shehu is Meir and Metzias. Means the Shlilas Kol HaTorah Kamei Shehu is Meir in the realm and in the Musagim of Metzias. So according to the Alter Rebbe, the Metzias doesn't begin with Ein Sof. The Metzias begins with Atzmos, not with Ein Sof. Because the initial Metzias is the Etzem being reflected, is the Ermei and Amar. Shaken according to the Mekubal HaMarishainim and according to the Ramak, Atzmos is beyond the whole realm of Metzias. Metzias is a certain limitation. Metzias is a certain definition, a certain taich. Metzias has a certain the musik of Bria, of Metzias Bria, has a certain taich that can't contain within itself, and that's a whole different be'enarech klal to the Shlilas Kol HaTorah. So maybe you can't decide what's true legam Metzias based on Shlilas Kol HaTorah. It's a whole different realm of reality legam. And the initial Metzias is Ein Sof, according to the Mekubal HaMarishainim. Means if Mitzat Seichel HaNivraim, let's say it in this way. Mitzat Seichel HaNivraim, what's the truth? Mitzat Seichel HaBriya, according to the Mekubal HaMarishainim, not Mitzat Seichel HaBriya. Mitzat G'darim HaVelt. What's the ultimate Metzias? What's the truth? Is the fact that the Eibusher is Ein Sof. Shlilas Kol HaTorah, that's as they state in Torah, and that's we know. But Welt is not Machriyat. The initial musik of Elokus, the way is Nimshach and is Gal in Welt, is the fact that the Eibusher is Blikvo, is Ein Sof, is Ratz, is Keser. Shlilas Kol HaTorah, that has nothing to do with Welt. How do we know about it? Warum Torah steht das? But it's not mitzad metzius of Bria. You cannot trace back to Shloas Kol Torah. But according to the Alter Rebbe, Shloas Kol Torah is begilui. Begilui means that he's nirgash in metzius. And what's nirgash in metzius? Shloas Kol Torah. It means that the metzius begins with the mitzvah about. We'll have to see the product of that. We'll continue this part. We'll continue this Wednesday. Yeah, no Wednesday, Tuesday.